in a courtroom drama that's shaking the very foundations of the music industry and beyond. Johnny Depp's powerhouse lawyer, yes, the same fierce legal mind who helped Depp win against Amber Heard's now dropping bombshell after bombshell. In the explosive P. Diddy sex trafficking trial, the tension is palpable, the revelations earth-shattering, and the drama. Oh, it's just getting started. From shocking testimonies behind closed doors to secret hotel footage mysteriously leaked, online, every twist is more jaw-dropping than the last. But nothing prepared us for the 5 revelations that came straight from the lips of Depp's now infamous lawyer Reach, one darker, more damning, and more dangerous than the next, as celebrities start unfollowing Diddy on social media and old friends turn their backs. Courtroom spectators report gasps, tears, and even walkouts. This isn't just a trial, one insider whispers. It's a full-blown reckoning. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it does. What's really going on behind those heavy courtroom doors? Why is Johnny Depp's legal bulldog suddenly the eye of the storm? And what are the 5 bombshells that might just destroy everything? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear will leave you questioning everything. The courtroom was thick with tension as the doors creaked open and all eyes turned to a tall, sharp figure entering with quiet authority. It was none other than Camille Vasquez, the firebrand lawyer who had fiercely defended Johnny Depp in his high-profile defamation trial. Now she was back in the spotlight, but this time not for Hollywood drama. She was representing a mysterious witness in the P. Diddy sex trafficking trial. And what she brought to the courtroom left even seasoned reporters speechless. People murmured as Camille unfolded a stack of confidential documents, her face emotionless, but her eyes burning with intensity. She wasn't just here to play legal games, she was here to bring fire. And when she spoke, her words cut through the silence like a blade. "Your Honor," she said, voice low and deliberate, "what I'm about to present will change the course of this trial. ... forever." Gasps filled the room. P. Diddy, seated just feet away, tried to maintain his composure, but his fingers clenched tightly around the arms of his chair. Across from him, his legal team exchanged hurried whispers. No one knew what Camille had up her sleeve, but something told them it was going to be catastrophic. She began to recount the first of 5 bombshell moments. The courtroom leaned in. The first shock: a series of hidden surveillance videos from an upscale Los Angeles hotel, Allegedly owned through a shell company connected to Diddy. The footage, according to Camille, captured more than just typical celebrity partying. It allegedly showed coercive encounters involving underage girls, celebrities, and high-profile executives. And it wasn't just what was on the tape that sent shivers through the room. It was who had provided it. The whistleblower, Camille explained, was a former security contractor. He feared for his life, but he could no longer stay silent. The room went cold. One juror actually dropped her pen on the video. One figure stood out clearly. It was Diddy, not hosting a party, not giving a performance, but allegedly standing guard, watching as events unfolded behind closed doors. While the defense immediately objected, calling it deepfake nonsense, the judge overruled. The footage was submitted into evidence, and the courtroom became a pressure cooker of whispers and accusations. Outside, news vans swarmed the courthouse. Inside, the jury sat stunned. Diddy's team looked pale. And from the back row, a woman suddenly stood and screamed, I told you this would come out." She was escorted out, crying hysterically. No one knew who she was yet but her. Interruption hinted that more voices were waiting in the shadows. Camille continued unfazed. Her calmness made it all the more chilling. "The second point," she said, "is about the money trail. And it leads straight to some of the most powerful people in entertainment. According to her, shell companies linked to Diddy funneled large sums, millions, to obscure charities that, upon investigation, didn't actually exist. Those funds allegedly ended up in secret accounts connected to events that matched the timeline of the trafficking claims. The implication: these payments weren't donations, they were payoffs. This wasn't just negligence, Camille said sharply, locking eyes with the jury. It was deliberate, it was organized, and it was protected by silence and money. The courtroom was paralyzed. One of Diddy's former associates, seated behind him, visibly shifted in his seat. Whispers rippled through the rows. Then came a voice. From the gallery was another familiar face, former hip-hop producer Malik Bryant. Once a close collaborator of Diddy's, he hadn't been seen with him in years. His voice trembled as he stood. "I knew this day would come," he said, then pointed toward Diddy. "He warned me never to speak. But I can't keep living with what I know." The judge ordered him silent, but the damage was done. Cameras caught Diddy staring down Malik with eyes that could cut glass. The trial had barely begun. But the cracks were spreading fast. Camille turned toward the jury once more. "My client will testify that she was one of many who were lured with promises of fame, only to find herself trapped in a cycle of fear and control. This is not just about one man. This is about an entire machine built on silence." At that moment, Diddy's mother, seated behind him, clutched her pearls and looked away. It was the first time she had shown any visible emotion during the proceedings. The gallery sat frozen as Camille announced she would be calling her first witness the next day. A former backup dancer, one who had worked directly under Diddy's tour staff. Someone whose career had vanished overnight under mysterious circumstances. But before court adjourned, there was one more twist. Camille produced a printed TFT, meal heavily redacted with one line clearly visible: "Get her to stay quiet, whatever it takes." The recipient, an executive producer of a major network reality show. The sender, a masked account linked back to an IP address registered to a property owned by Diddy's label. As murmurs rose again, Diddy finally spoke for the first time since the trial began. "This is lies. All of it." His voice boomed through the courtroom. And for a split second, the drama reached a fever pitch. Camille didn't flinch. She looked at him with that same cold confidence she had shown in the Depp trial and replied simply, "We'll let the jury decide that." Court adjourned. Reporters ran to their vans. Fans outside wept, shouted, and screamed. Hashtags exploded on social media. The world was now watching every second, every statement, every stare. And this was just the beginning. As Diddy was escorted out under heavy security, he glanced at the crowd that once adored him. Now, many held up signs demanding justice, some bearing faces of alleged victims. Somewhere in that mass of chaos stood Malik Bryant, quiet now, his hands shaking. He knew the machine was breaking down. He wasn't sure if that was a victory, or just the beginning of something far darker. And as for Camille Vasquez, she didn't look back as she stepped into her waiting car. She knew the storm she had unleashed was only just gathering force. She opened her briefcase, slid the next batch of evidence forward, and whispered to her assistant, "We haven't even hit the third bombshell yet." And with that, the wheels of the car rolled away from the courthouse, even as social media was melting down over what had just transpired. But as the headlines screamed and pundits debated, one question loomed over everything: what else was still hidden in the shadows? Because if what we'd just seen was only the start, the next part would take this scandal to a place no one was ready for. Because if what we'd just seen was only the start, the next part would take this scandal to a place no one was ready for. The very next morning, before court resumed, the internet had already erupted. Influencers, journalists, and even celebrities were weighing in. Fans of Diddy were split, some fiercely defending him, others posting tearful videos denouncing their former idol. One video that went viral showed a young woman, barely 20, clutching an old backstage photo of herself with Diddy. Her caption, "I thought he was a mentor. Now, I don't know what to believe." But inside the courtroom, belief wasn't optional. It was about to be tested. As Camille Vasquez entered, her expression unreadable. She carried a slim black folder. No dramatics this time, just cold precision. What she revealed next would become the second bombshell, the backup dancer known only as a .s. For her protection, took the stand. She was visibly nervous, her hands shaking as she was sworn in. But as she began speaking, her voice gained strength. "I was 18, she said. "I thought I got my big break. Touring with one of the biggest names in music, I couldn't believe it." Her smile faded, but things changed fast. There were parties. Parties we weren't allowed to leave. We were told we'd be blacklisted if we talked. And then the rules changed. Suddenly, we weren't just dancers. We were decorations for people with power. She looked down as she recalled one night, in particular, one that ended with her locked in a hotel suite for nearly 12 hours. "I was told if I left, there'd be consequences." "I believed them," Camille asked calmly. "Who told you that?" "A man named Trey said he worked for Diddy directly." Gasps. Trey was one of Diddy's longtime bodyguards, known for his loyalty and silence. "Did he hurt you?" "No," she replied, voice low. "But he made sure others could." As the courtroom hung in that awful silence, Diddy stared ahead, his jaw tight. He hadn't looked at her once. Then came the twist. Camille handed her a printed photo. It was from a private birthday party held at a luxury estate in Bel Air. The image showed the dancer in the background, looking visibly uncomfortable. In the foreground, Diddy, surrounded by executives and a famous R&B singer. "Do you remember this night?" Camille asked. The dancer nodded. "I tried to leave. They locked the gates." The judge's gavel slammed down as the defense objected, claiming there was no proof of this event being anything more than a party. But Camille had receipts literally. Digital gate logs, text messages, and even a voicemail left by the dancer. To her sister that night, frantically whispering, "They won't let me out." The voicemail played for the jury. The sound of her fear was undeniable. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. But that wasn't even the twist. After the dancer stepped down, visibly shaken, Camille announced the third bombshell moment: an anonymous letter. This letter, sent to a major news outlet but intercepted by legal authorities, allegedly detailed how multiple young women were recruited from local modeling agencies, promised deals with fashion brands, and then funneled into what the writer called the compound. The compound, as it turned out, was a code name used internally by staff at one of Diddy's luxury homes. A place, according to the letter, where parties were staged specifically for certain guests. And while some celebrities attended these parties unaware of what was going on, others weren't so innocent. Camille didn't read the full contents of the letter in court. Instead, she read the final line aloud. "I stayed silent because I was afraid, but I'm more afraid of who I'll become if I don't speak now." At this, Diddy's younger half-brother, who had remained completely absent until this day, suddenly showed up in court, unannounced, and took a seat in the back row. Whispers filled the gallery. His face was pale, unreadable. He had refused interviews for weeks. Now, his sudden appearance suggested something had changed. Outside, the crowd was growing more hostile. "No chance of justice," for the girls echoed. From the courthouse steps, celebrities were now deleting photos with Diddy from their Instagram accounts. Even former collaborators were issuing carefully worded statements, distancing themselves. The public was demanding more names, more answers. Back inside, Diddy's legal team pushed hard to discredit the witness testimony. They accused Camille of turning the trial into a media circus and asked the judge to strike the anonymous letter as inadmissible. But the judge disagreed. "It speaks to a pattern," he said, "and patterns matter." Camille barely blinking, moved to her fourth exhibit, a voicemail that had been deleted but later recovered by forensic investigators. It was from a young woman named Brielle, who had vanished from the public eye 2 years ago after accusing an unnamed music mogul of abuse. Her claims had been ignored at the time, but now her voice was back. The voicemail was quiet, scratchy, and full of static. But one part was clear: if anything happens to me, check Diddy's place in the hills. They keep everything there. Tapes, files, proof. I saw too much. The courtroom shivered. One juror wiped a tear from her eye. Camille paused and let the silence do the work. She knew the weight of that voice was heavier than any document. Then she added quietly, "Brielle has not been seen since that voicemail." The media frenzy exploded. Conspiracy theories flew. Was Brielle in hiding? Was she silenced? Or worse? That night, the headlines burned across every platform. The compound tapes trended worldwide. Fans began compiling timelines. Reddit? Sleuths dug up old interviews, tweets, photos, anything that could support the testimonies. Meanwhile, Diddy's team made their move. They claimed all the evidence was fabricated, twisted by Camille to fit a narrative. They accused her of using Hollywood theatrics to manipulate the jury, but the public wasn't buying it. Even former bodyguard Trey was now missing, reportedly. On vacation in the Caymans, insiders whispered he was being hidden, maybe paid off, maybe silenced. Still, Camille was relentless. On the final day of that week, she stood and looked directly at Diddy. "You thought your legacy would be platinum albums and awards. But the real story, the one the world will remember, is what happened in those locked rooms." Diddy didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. As court adjourned, a sudden power outage hit the building. Lights flickered, monitors shut off. Panic briefly surged through the hallways. Some speculated it was a coincidence. Others believed it was sabotage. When the lights came back, Camille was already packing her things. A reporter asked her, "What's next?" She simply replied, "We haven't gotten to the 5th bombshell yet." And as the crowd outside roared, as protesters waved signs and the world held its breath, one thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a reckoning. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a reckoning. The weekend between court sessions should have been quiet. Instead, it became a media firestorm. Documentaries were already being pitched. Podcasts dedicated entire episodes to the timeline of the alleged abuse. And fans demanded that every artist who had once worked with Diddy speak out. Some did. Others stayed silent, but it was Camille Vasquez who broke the silence on Monday morning, not with words, but with presence. She walked into the courtroom wearing the same quiet confidence, carrying a briefcase said to hold the 5th and final bombshell. The crowd outside had doubled. Inside, reporters had to be rotated in shifts due to limited seating. Court was called into session. The judge looked tired, as though the weight of what this case had become was catching up to him. But Camille? She looked ready. "Your Honor," she began, "the next witness is not a victim. He's a former insider, and what he knows connects every loose thread we've seen so far." The courtroom leaned forward. Few gasps rose as a man entered through the side door. Older, weary-looking, and accompanied by armed security, he was immediately recognizable to those who knew the industry. His name was Roland Banksa, former executive at Bad Boy Records. He hadn't been seen in over a decade. "Mr. Banks," Camille said calmly, "can you explain why you left the music industry so abruptly in 2013? His voice cracked because I saw things I shouldn't have. And when I tried to get out clean, ... They made sure I couldn't talk." He looked directly at Diddy. "You remember, don't you?" Diddy looked away. Banks continued. "We had a house, not a studio, not a mansion, a house. No music came out of it. It was used for guests, private events. They called it the vault." Camille asked, "What happened in the vault?" Banks swallowed. "Girls were brought in. Some were underage. Some were so high they didn't know where they were. People paid to attend. We were told to keep everything off paper. No emails, no texts, just verbal instructions. Everything was burned after." The room went still. He pulled out an old photo, crumpled at the corners. It showed the front of a lavish but unremarkable house. "That's the vault," he said. "We were told if we ever said a word, we'd lose everything. Careers, families, maybe our lives." Camille showed him a list of transactions: cash withdrawals, wire transfers, and black card purchases tied to a fake music promotion company. "Do you recognize these?" she asked. Yes, all coded. They paid everyone who worked those nights, with preloaded cards, no names, just numbers. Then came the moment no one expected. One night, Banks said Brielle tried to leave. She threatened to call the cops. The next morning, she was gone. You could hear the sharp inhale across the room. Camille leaned in. "Gone where? I don't know. Nobody knows. We were told she'd been handled, and then ... nothing." This was the fourth bombshell, the official connection between Brielle's disappearance and the inner circle. "We were pawns," Banks added. "All of us. Some played along, some didn't make it out." The judge allowed a brief recess. Reporters ran to their laptops. Social media broke into pieces. #FindBrielle began trending again, with new leads flooding in. One person claimed to have seen her in Montreal. Another said she had changed her name. But nothing could be confirmed. As court resumed, Camille turned to her final piece of evidence. The fifth and most devastating bombshell. "We have obtained a series of internal recordings from security cameras inside the vault. They were never meant to be saved, but one technician archived a few for his own protection." The judge allowed the clips to be shown in closed session, meaning only the jury and legal teams would view them. But even from outside the chamber, the reactions were chilling. A juror openly cried. Another asked to be excused to the restroom. Pale and trembling, Camille didn't describe what was on the tapes publicly. But her summary said enough. It confirms trafficking. It confirms coercion. And it confirms that Sean Combs, also known as Diddy, was not only aware but involved. The defense team called for mistrial. They accused Camille of manufacturing evidence, manipulating the court of public opinion, and sensationalizing pain. But the judge denied it. "The people deserve the truth," he said. As Camille gathered her files, she looked toward the back of the courtroom. Diddy's half-brother stood up and slowly walked out, never once looking back. That gesture spoke louder than any statement. Outside, the protesters were no longer just fans. They were survivors, advocates, families of girls who had vanished over the years. Some had nothing to do with Diddy, but their pain was mirrored in the allegations. This trial had become a symbol, silence breaking, of reckoning long overdue. A reporter caught up to Camille on the steps. "Do you think this will bring him down?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, "It's not about bringing someone down. It's about lifting others up. Those who were buried, those who were broken, Inside the courtroom, the energy shifted. Diddy's team began preparing their witnesses. They were expected to call high-profile artists to testify on his character. One name leaked was that of a pop superstar who owed his rise to Diddy, but sources said he was hesitating. He didn't want to be tied to this legacy. Meanwhile, more alleged victims began contacting Camille. The number of stories was rising. And though not all would make it into the trial, the sheer volume painted a picture no one could ignore. The next day, one of Diddy's former stylists was spotted entering the courthouse privately. She hadn't been summoned yet, but insiders say she had something explosive to share. Something about the vault's second floor. Camille, aware of the storm still brewing, reviewed her notes that night at a secure location. Her assistant asked, "Do you think he'll run?" Camille replied without looking up, "No. Men like him don't run. They hide in plain sight." And with that, part 3 of this unfolding saga ended, leaving a nation glued to every development. Every whisper and every witness who dared to come forward. Because if you thought the fire was burning now, what was coming next would be an inferno. Because if you thought the fire was burning now, what was coming next would be an inferno. The very next morning, the court was packed tighter than ever. Extra security had been called in. Unconfirmed reports claimed someone tried to bribe a juror overnight. The judge ordered a private investigation. Nobody knew who was behind it. But whispers pointed to powerful hands wanting the trial to disappear. But Camille Vasquez wasn't going anywhere. The moment court began, she walked in with a new witness. Her identity was sealed until the moment she stepped into the light. When she divvied phone, every pen, every pair of eyes froze. It was Serenity Dawn, the same pop icon who had once called Diddy her mentor. The same artist who vanished from the spotlight 3 years ago under mysterious health reasons. Her reappearance was more than a shock hit, was a seismic cultural moment. Dressed in all black, hair tied back, Serenity looked like someone ready to set fire to a history she once helped build. The judge asked her if she was ready. She nodded. Camille began gently. "Miss Dawn, how did you first meet Sean Combs?" Serenity took a breath. "I was 17. He signed me after a talent showcase. Promised I'd be the next big thing. And were you?" "For a while," she replied, her voice trembling. "Until I saw what success cost." She described in haunting detail how she was introduced to the vault. How she thought it was just a place for retreats, writing sessions, or exclusive parties. Until one night, she arrived early and saw too much. There was a girl. She couldn't have been older than 16, crying. Her makeup was smudged. She asked me to help her, but before I could speak, security rushed in. They told me to forget what I saw. "Did you?" Camille asked. "I tried to. I buried it. They made me believe it was normal. They made me believe it was the price of fame." The courtroom was absolutely still. Serenity wasn't crying. Her voice was controlled, quiet, but every word sliced through the air. "The worst part," she added, "I brought people there. Friends, upcoming artists, because I thought it was safe. I didn't know I was feeding them into the same machine." "Did Sean Combs ever hurt you directly?" Camille asked. Serenity shook her head. "Not physically, but he knew what was happening. He let it happen. He protected the ones who ran it." Then came the twist. "I recorded one conversation," she said. "I was scared. I knew I'd be next if I didn't protect myself." Camille produced the recording. It was barely a minute long, but what it captured hit like a sledgehammer. Diddy's voice, unmistakable, could be heard saying, "Don't worry about her. She'll keep quiet. They always do. Especially if they want the damn record deal." Serenity identified the context. It was after she confronted him about a girl she saw crying in the vault. She had secretly recorded that meeting. fearing for her safety. The defense immediately objected, but the judge overruled. "This is not just character," he said. "This is potential intent." Outside the courtroom, the world lost its mind. Serenity's name trended across every platform. Survivors began using her image as a rallying cry. Her music surged in streams. But more importantly, her voice now stood for something bigger. And yet, as explosive as her testimony was, Camille wasn't done. She had one more play that day. "Your Honor," she said, "the court must now hear from the only person who kept physical records of the vault's operations." Enter Elijah Stokes. He was the vault's former assistant manager, silent for years. No social media, no known address. But he had been found by Camille's team, living under a false name in Maine, running a bookstore. He looked like a man who had aged far beyond his years. When he took the stand, he carried a worn briefcase. Inside were ledgers, handwritten, coded, but painfully real. "I was the one who booked the rooms," he said. "I coordinated arrivals, food, music, guest lists. I didn't know what I was walking into until it was too late. And by then, ... they had me." Camille asked, "Why did you stay? Did you stay?" "Because they had footage of me too, of me helping. Even if I didn't hurt anyone, I was complicit, and they threatened to ruin me." He opened the ledger to a specific page, dates, times, names, initials. "These were the girls who were brought in," he said. "I don't know all their names, but I remember their faces." Camille gently asked, "Do you see any of them in this courtroom?" He hesitated, then pointed to the back row. The dancer known as a .S from earlier in the trial nodded silently. Tears streamed down her face. The connection was made. The ledger was real. Elijah's single quotes' voice broke as he said, "I'm sorry. I should have helped you that night." The courtroom was in tears. Even the judge had to pause before continuing. The defense was rattled. They no longer had control. Their plan to shift blame onto rogue staffers collapsed with Elijah's testimony. Now, everything pointed upward to the top. Outside, Diddy was being dropped by brand after brand. Fragrance lines pulled off shelves. Endorsements canceled. Industry giants suddenly reviewing their past associations. But the biggest shock came when Diddy's own legal counsel filed a motion to postpone further hearings. Rumor was, Diddy was considering a deal, not to walk away, but to talk. Sources said he was ready to name names. "He's scared," one insider said. "He doesn't want to go down alone." And just like that, the fire that had already engulfed his empire began spreading. Who else was involved? Which celebrities? Which executives? Which politicians? Serenity Dawn left the courtroom that day with a simple statement: "This is bigger than him, and it's only just begun." Camille looked out at the press and added one chilling thought: there are more vaults out there. As dusk fell on the courthouse and fans lit candles outside for the survivors, one thing was clear: this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something even more dangerous. Because now the world wanted answers, and someone was going to pay. Because now the world wanted answers, and someone was going to pay. The atmosphere outside the courthouse had transformed. It wasn't just about the trial anymore. It was about justice delayed, stories buried, and an industry built on silence. Artists, activists, and journalists gathered like it was the front line of a cultural war. Some held signs with names of missing girls. Others chanted lyrics from Serenity Dawn's re-released anthem that had now become a cry for survivors. "We see you, we hear you, we believe you." Inside, Diddy sat pale and expressionless. His once commanding presence had withered. Gone was the swagger. The tailored suits seemed heavier. His lawyers whispered frantically, trying to maintain what little narrative they had left. Because now, it wasn't just Camille's case against him. It was the world watching, waiting for the house of cards to collapse. The judge entered court. "We'll resume," he said solemnly. "Mr. Combs, you are not required to testify. But the court understands you have made a decision." All eyes turned to Diddy. He stood up slowly. The room held its breath. "I will testify," he said. "You could." Feel the electricity shoot through the air. Even Camille looked momentarily surprised. He took the stand, adjusted the microphone, and looked at Camille. "I've been a mogul. I've been a king in this game. And now I'm sitting here accused of being a monster. And maybe I became one." Gasps rang out. Camille didn't interrupt. She let him speak. "I never touched those girls. Not directly. But I didn't stop things I should have. I let things happen. I looked the other way. Because power, ... it makes you blind. It makes you God." He looked at the judge, then at the jury. "But don't think I'm the only one. Don't think I built that vault alone. There were others. Bigger than me. Richer than me. Men in suits who never got their hands dirty but made all the rules." He paused. "You want to bring down a system? Fine. Start with me. But don't stop here." Camille rose, calm and focused. "Mr. Combs, are you saying you are part of a larger operation?" "I'm saying the music industry is just the front. Behind it is something darker, and everyone in power knows it." "Names?" she asked. He looked down. Silence. "Names, Mr. Combs." He finally whispered 3 names. All executives, all currently heading major entertainment companies. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Chaos unfolded. One reporter fainted. Another ran out to break the story. Camille turned to the judge. "Your Honor, we request federal protection for witnesses, an immediate investigation into the entities just named." The judge agreed. And just like that, the trial's scope expanded. From criminal proceedings to a national conspiracy, Diddy had opened the floodgates. The next few hours blurred into madness. Subpoenas were drafted on the spot. The FBI issued statements. Celebrities distanced themselves in panic. The stock prices of certain companies dipped dramatically. The entire industry was shaken. And then, a scream. Outside the courthouse, someone had collapsed. It was Brielle. She wasn't dead. She wasn't in Canada. She had been in hiding. Camille rushed outside with her team. Brielle, shaking and wrapped in a blanket, whispered one thing: "I couldn't run forever." She was placed under protective custody. And in a sealed emergency hearing, she confirmed nearly every account given in the trial. "They promised me fame," she said, "but they took my life." Her testimony was damning. Not just to Diddy, but to those who had paid for the vault, those who used it. When asked why she came back now, her voice cracked. Because Serenity spoke. Because Camille fought. Because for the first time, someone listened. The internet went into meltdown. BRIELLE. Single quotes S story became the #1 trend worldwide. Her last known video resurfaced and went viral. Fans raised money for survivors. Talk shows canceled regular programming to cover the trial. Celebrities who once praised Diddy now released apologies or deleted old tweets. It was like watching an empire being torn down brick by brick. And at the center of it, Camille Vasquez. A legal mind? Yes, a T. But now also a symbol. One journalist described her as the quiet blade slicing through decades of silence. The judge declared a week's recess before the final verdict. Diddy remained in custody, now under protective surveillance due to threats from unnamed associates fearing exposure. He wasn't just a man on trial anymore. He was a man who knew too much. Camille spent those days preparing. New witnesses came forward. New evidence surfaced. A private plane manifest from 2011 linked several names to secret trips to the vault. Wasn't just a sex trafficking trial now, it was the collapse of a shadow network. When the court reconvened, you could feel the world watching. People outside held signs that read, "Justice for the voiceless" and "Burn the vaults." Inside, Camille stood to give her final summary. This case is not about fame. It's not about one man. It's about power. And what happens when power is left unchecked? Mr. Combs did not act alone. But he was a gatekeeper. And he chose to keep the gate closed for money, for influence, for silence. She walked slowly in front of the jury. You have heard their stories. You have seen their pain. And now the question is, ... do we believe them? Her voice dropped. Or do we let the next vault remain open? The jury was dismissed. Outside, the sky darkened. Diddy sat in silence, awaiting fate. Camille walked past him without a word. He didn't look up, because for the first time in his life, he didn't want to be seen. And with that, the main body of this sensational saga came to a stunning pause. The verdict, the fallout, the future still unknown. But one thing was certain, the vault was no longer a secret. And there you have it, the jaw-dropping twists, the explosive testimonies, and the secrets that have rocked not just a trial, but an entire industry to its core. As Diddy's world crumbles and the vault's shadow is finally cast into the light, one thing is crystal clear. This story is far from over. Will Diddy take the fall alone? Or will the names he whispered drag more powerful players into the spotlight? Will the survivors finally get the justice they deserve? Or will the system protect its own once again? Fans are shocked. Emotions ran high throughout the trial. And the family of the entertainment world is left divided in disbelief. The drama has captivated millions, but the real question is, what comes next? We want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe the vault was just the tip of the iceberg? Who do you think will be the next to face justice? Is this the beginning of a new era? Or will the industry's dark secrets continue to thrive behind closed doors? Drop your opinions in the comments below. Let's get the conversation started. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most sensational cases of our time, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to stay updated with the latest drama, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a breaking story. Because here, the truth always has layers. And we're here to peel them back for you. Stay tuned, stay curious, and as always, thanks for watching.